Hi everyone. It's really good to have you all here and welcome to today's workshop. This is all about 3 practical shifts for charity freelancers. And I'm so excited to see you all and to share this workshop with you today. Firstly, I just wanted to give you a bit of context really to the work that we are doing today. So for those who don't know, I'm Bethany Helliwell-Smith. I'm a coach, facilitator and speaker, and I specialise in supporting people working in the charity sector. The reason being is that I started my career in fundraising back in 2010. And I've worked in relationship-based roles, fundraising roles within organisations like British Red Cross, Wales Millennium Centre and Frank Water. So I know this sector very, very well, the pace of it, the pressure of it, and how quickly things can change. And then since 2020, I've been working with charity professionals and freelancers like yourselves across the sector. And the people I tend to work with are already super capable. They're trusted, they're delivering great work, they're having a positive impact, but the way that their work feels isn't steady or sustainable. And over time, I've noticed that this isn't about people needing to try harder. It's about, the work itself and how it's structured, how responsibility is held, how pressure is felt, and whether there's anything in place that can actually contain that for you so you don't feel it personally. So this is what this session is about. I'm going to walk you through 3 practical shifts and begin to change how your freelance business is set up. This work tends to create quite immediate senses of clarity and an opportunity for your work to feel steadier. This is a brave and supportive thinking space, so you don't need to leave with a perfect plan. Before we get into today's workshop, I wanted to share that I host monthly conversations just like this one, exploring what sustainable working can actually look like in the charity sector. So these are opportunities where we really step back from the day-to-day pressure and look at how your work is functioning underneath it all. So if today's workshop resonates with you, I would highly recommend popping over to my YouTube channel and checking out all of the recordings that are available on there. I really want to start by bringing you into this straight away. It's much more powerful if you can recognize it for yourself. So when your work is viewed from the outside, so let's think about it on your website, in meetings with potential clients, or in your LinkedIn posts, it probably looks a little bit like this. You probably look booked. Maybe you looked busy, maybe you're portraying you're trusted, you're recommended, you're experienced. But that's not the full picture, else you wouldn't be here today, right? So I want you to take a moment to ask yourself, what does your freelance work actually feel like in practice right now? Have a think. What does your work actually feel like in practice at the moment? Precarious, chaotic, too much, sporadic, often feels like spinning wheels rather than moving forward, overwhelming, crazy. Okay. I wish I could say I was surprised. I am not. Okay. Often feels like I'm overworking because I'm scared it'll be gone next month. Yeah. I hear you. Okay, yeah. So often what comes up is exactly what you've popped in the chat there. It's you feel reactive, stressed, overstretched maybe. You feel like it's unsustainable or unpredictable. Now I want you to think about the difference between how your work looks and how it actually feels. And that difference is what we're going to work with today. Because once we name it and we can see it clearly, that's when things really start to shift quite quickly. There's usually a pattern underneath all of this. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit at the start of this session, because it often starts when your clients feel pressure. And let's face it, in the charity sector, right now? When don't they? And perhaps even post-pandemic, clients have been at that kind of heightened level of urgency and reactiveness. It might be funding deadlines, leadership expectations, things just not working out as they'd hoped, really. And because you care about the cause, the people, the work, your reputation, and because you're good at what you do, that pressure usually starts to move towards you. And that can often be quite subtle. It could be a late night message, a bit more responsibility, a last minute request, or even an assumption that you'll just handle something. But over time, you become the person that pressure finds. It kind of seeks you out. The kind of most important thing about this is the reason that this happens. It's often because there's nothing in the current way you're working or the setup of your business that's there to contain this pressure before it reaches you, before that pressure becomes personal. So I want to hear from you again. Where does pressure currently show up for you in your freelance work? You might notice it in your never-ending to-do list, or your inbox, or your evenings. You might notice the pressure building up in your client relationships, your pricing. Yeah, pricing, there we are in the chat. In your project scope, maybe in feeling like you have to be at your best all the time. I've definitely heard that. All of the above, says Emily. Scope creep, huge one. We're going to talk about that today. Constantly looking for new work. Yeah, the balance of looking for new work and doing the work that you've already found is really difficult, isn't it? Moving timelines, inability to stick to a plan, me or the client. Yeah, absolutely. Working with several clients at the same time where I'm the only one holding everything. Yeah, absolutely, Sharon. Balancing different clients' needs. Yeah. It's really hard, isn't it, when a client has an urgent event or a deadline or something, and then over here you've got another client that also has that, and you're kind of trying to balance the two urgencies. Brand new information shared mid-project. Yeah, been there. Okay, so let's ground this in the reality of the sector at the moment, because what you're experiencing isn't happening in isolation. You can see from the chat the other freelancers in this virtual room today are feeling exactly the same as you. But across the sector, more broadly, demand on services is rising. At the same time, funding is often uncertain or highly competitive. The teams we're working with are stretched, capacity is limited, and priorities can shift very quickly. And when pressure builds inside organizations, freelancers are often the ones that pressure lands on. And that's because you're capable, because you're responsive, and you're close enough to the work to be pulled in to help, sometimes by the scruff of your neck. Am I right? When things really start to feel urgent and reactive, it's not just your never-ending to-do list that's the problem. It's things like your client agreements, your boundaries, the way that you're communicating, your working environment and your routines. And most freelancers that I work with are not struggling because they're not capable. I work with powerhouses that are so impressive. But their issue really is how their work is structured, how their week is shaped, how the responsibility is held, and how the pressure is affecting your work. And without a kind of intentional structure, the default is that the pressure of the sector landslides towards you. And this is often turning into, over time, what I call the firefighter role. So let me talk you through this and see if it resonates with you. Most charity freelancers aren't brought in when everything is calm and steady, sadly. We're often brought in when something isn't working. A campaign hasn't landed, funding feels uncertain, there's pressures coming from the leadership team or even the trustees, or there's a lack of resource in the organisation and they're at breaking point. So From the very beginning of working with a charity client, you're often stepping into a role that already has pressure bubbling up. And because you're experienced, recommended, committed, and capable, there's often an unspoken expectation there that you'll fix the thing, whatever that might be. It's not just about delivering the piece of work. Often you're being expected to kind of help hold the wider situation together. I've seen this play out in things like being asked to lead on difficult conversations that weren't originally yours, smoothing things over internally, projects kind of creeping into areas you don't actually enjoy, navigating big waves of bureaucracy, which I'm absolutely allergic to, and carrying responsibility for outcomes beyond your control or even your expertise. It's actually, out of scope and builds over time until one day you realize you're holding far more than you agreed to, and definitely far more than you charged for. So before we get into the shifts, I want to pause here and ask you, can you keep working like this? Because for many people, this can feel like this is just how work is. Your week shifts, things expand, pressure lands, mental load rises, and you handle it because you can, you have, and you feel you have to. But maybe the question isn't, can I keep working like this? Maybe the question should be, what happens if I keep working like this? Or what happens if nothing changes? Because I've been there and I've seen this play out with many clients that I've coached who are, in similar situations to yourselves. Over time, this kind of situation doesn't stay neutral. It becomes work that slowly takes over your evenings, work that sits in your head when you're not working, work that feels heavier than it should. And this isn't about improving things slightly. It's about deciding, is this what I left in-house for? Is this how I want my week to feel 6 months from now, a year from now? Okay, let's dive into the 3 shifts that will help you build a way of working that can hold the pressure without it constantly landing on you. Because when that structure of your business holds the pressure, it means that you don't have to. So shift 1 is about your time. This is where we learn how to contain your week. Because right now, for many freelancers, your week is probably very open. You've moved from in-house to freelance, and all of a sudden, all of the weekly meetings, Teams messages and interruptions, any staff that you used to manage or line managers that you used to kind of meet with have stopped, and your week is yours. Wonderful. However, when your week is completely open and lacks any kind of structure, urgency and pressure will fill those gaps. So to explain this a little further, I want to share some examples with you. And I've got the examples on the screen here. If any one of these shouts out to you and you want to hear it, pop it in the chat. I'm going to start with the Monday plan that disappears. I wanted to kind of name these like they were films or books that you just wouldn't want to read. So the Monday plan that disappears. If you want to hear any of the other ones, pop them in the chat. You can just do 1, 2, 3, 4 if you want to, or just type out the short version of the name. So the Monday plan that disappears, you start Monday with a clear plan, but by Tuesday morning, a client email lands marked urgent. A funding deadline is suddenly pulled forward. You reshuffle your day just once. And by Wednesday, your whole week has shifted. You've had to move this client work to this day to this day. Your week starts with a plan, but other people's urgency just keeps reshaping it. Deadlines move, requests come in, priorities change. And because your week is so open and you don't hold your boundaries, everything gets moved around. So what needs to change? You know this. Instead of staying constantly available to whatever comes up, you create a working week with enough structure to hold pressure without collapsing. You still receive the same email marked urgent, but instead of immediately moving everything, you respond with something like, I can see this is important. I'll review this, and this afternoon I will come back to you. You place the pressure into a defined space. You don't let it automatically override everything else. And you're not ignoring urgency. You're deciding where it sits. Okay, let's hear the always on inbox. So this is for those who check their emails throughout the day. You respond quickly because you want to be helpful. You feel guilty if you don't, as we're hearing in the chat. You don't want things to build up, and you want to prove your worth, your day rate. Maybe you increased your prices for this client and you're thinking, I have to be on it because I increased my prices. And you just want to stay on top of things. But what this means is that your focus is constantly broken. Your day gets reshaped in real time, and your poor old nervous system is on an absolute roller coaster. So what could containment look like instead? You let everybody you work with know, and you have an out of office to back you up, because we have technology at our fingertips that can help us to hold our boundaries. And that is that you check and respond to emails at certain times in the day. Now, for this example, I've said 9, 12, 3, but you have to decide that for yourself. That's completely up to you. And those times in between are protected to not only ensure you can do the best work for your clients, but so you can have a bloody wee and heaven forbid a lunch break, right? You're still responsive, but you're not constantly interruptible. Responsiveness does not require constant availability. So a client asks you, can we jump on a quick call? And you say immediately, yes. This is the client perhaps that pays you the most. I hear this quite a lot with the freelancers that I work with, is that to justify letting everything get blown out the water, they're like, yeah, but they're my best paying client. I need to be there. You can't quite believe that they said yes to working with you. So when they say jump, you say how high. But that quick call takes 45 minutes, cuts into your focus time, and creates follow-up work that shifts your entire afternoon out the window. So what does containment look like instead? You could respond to the client that said, can we jump on a quick call? I have availability on Thursday morning or Friday afternoon. Would either of those work? You don't absorb the urgency, but you do offer structured options. So the day that gets fragmented with no structure, I think this is definitely one that I've experienced. Your day can sometimes look like 20 minutes on one client, checking your inbox, 30 minutes on another project, quick Slack reply, back to something else, funding application tweaks, report writing, Teams message, emails. You're busy all day, but nothing actually feels complete. So what could containment in this situation look like instead? You group your work, and that can be in different ways. You can group it by client, or you could group it by type of work. So by type of work could be in the morning, you do deep work, delivery work. In the middle of the day, you have communication, replying to emails or some meetings. And then afternoon is for kind of lighter, more administrative work. Your energy and attention need to be protected and used when they're at their best. And that's what you have as a freelancer, right? You have the control to be able to design your week in a way that really works for you. So if you feel like you absolutely dread meetings on a Monday, you don't have meetings on a Monday. Change it. That is something that within your control. Containment is about protecting the quality of your attention and your energy. Are you ready for some tough love? Most charity freelancers that I speak with need to give themselves permission to step into their role as CEO of their own business and stop acting as an employee for six different clients. Because right now, the issue isn't that you don't have a plan, it's that your plan is too easy to override. And containment is simply deciding in advance what your week structure looks like, even when pressure shows up. So important. Being very clear about working hours across time zones has been key too. Yes, Paulina, really important. And it's okay to bend the rules, right? I've got a client at the moment that I'm coaching and she's in Australia. And so I moved a few things around and asked my husband to do the school run so that I could coach her at 9 a.m. Like, that's okay if you're being intentional about it, because all of the rest of my slots would have been the middle of the night for her. But what I want to get across is that this is within your control. And if you're intentional about that and you get to make those decisions, then your week will feel much better and you'll feel much more in control. It does make sense. Although I get a lot of emails that take 5 minutes to deal with. So I tend to think if I just do it straight away, I just get it out the way. Yeah, I do hear that. But if you were to bunch them together, maybe into a half an hour block and do all of those emails, it would stop you being interrupted every time a 5 minute email kind of comes in. Okay. I love the idea of stepping into a CEO role, not slipping into employee habits. Yeah, absolutely, Dawn. And I think it's something that we just don't give ourselves permission to do. A lot of charity freelancers I work with don't even see themselves as somebody that's running a business. And that is what you're doing. You are running a business. And so you have to make your own rules up and hold those boundaries in place for that business to be successful. Let's move on to shift number two. So, shift number two is about your role and resetting your responsibility. So, I see responsibility drift happen when work evolves, when expectations grow, when contracts perhaps get outdated or agreements are on a rolling basis. And nothing is really kind of clearly redefined, and you end up carrying far more than you originally thought. And that's not necessarily in workload. Uh, that's not necessarily just workload. That could be more emotional labor, more strategic thinking, more internal mediation, more responsibility for outcomes that you didn't actually sign up for in the first place. So, what can containment look like instead? You make responsibility visible. I'm not suggesting that you don't step into these things and your role doesn't evolve over time, but you get clear about what sits with you, what sits with your client, and speak up when the work expands beyond the original scope. So in practice, you get super clear with your scope, with clearer language and clearer pricing, so that your role matches what you're actually being asked to hold. And you plan review meetings to ensure that if, well, actually, let's face it, when things change, your agreement is updated. I've worked with freelancers that have worked with the same client for 3 years and they're still charging what they charged 3 years ago. And the agreement that they just kind of signed 3 years ago and really didn't look at again is nothing near to what they're now responsible for. It can feel challenging to challenge that because you don't want to rock the boat. If they've been paying you for 3 years, great. It's sustainable in one way, isn't it? But actually, are you being paid the right amount for the right amount of responsibility you now hold? Is everything that you agreed to now completely different, and maybe it's not working in the same way? So let's go through an example, shall we? The expanding project. So imagine that you were brought into an organization to deliver a campaign. But now, 3 months in, I need a big breath for this. You've been given an email address at said charity, red flag. You're advising on their 5-year strategy, meeting with the board, shaping messaging, mentoring an internal member of staff, attending extra meetings, troubleshooting unrelated issues, and attending a team meeting on your day off. Do any of those sound familiar? But honestly, sometimes, let's be honest with ourselves, some of this can be quite flattering, right? And I think this is where we need to keep our egos in check. I'm not suggesting that that list of things is wholly bad. Sometimes, if you are a freelancer and you're being asked to speak to the board, you can be like, oh, that feels quite good, right? That's, your expertise is being recognized. But what what does your fee reflect? Does your fee reflect all of those additional responsibilities? Because what's happening here is actually that the project has evolved, but your scope and pricing haven't. So that doesn't necessarily give you an opportunity to reset the responsibility. So what could that look like in this current situation? You could say, my work with you has evolved beyond what we originally agreed. It would be really helpful to revisit how we work together moving forward. Or something like, we've now moved into more strategic work, which is covered by one of my other service packages. Let's look at adjusting the scope to reflect that. Because when the work changes, the agreement needs to change as well, right? You're all putting so much great stuff in the chat. I don't have time to read it all. I so relate to this. I'd love to know your thoughts on handling last minute client work coming in when you're technically fully booked. I hate turning work down as I worry, oh, they won't ask again, but then I end up working long days. Yes, okay. So I think you need to really get clear on what your capacity is and the hours that you want to work, but also what you want to earn. So there's a calculation there, isn't there? So if we start with what you want to earn and the hours that you want to work, your fee on a day rate or for a project needs to make that equation work for the amount of hours you want to work and the amount you want to earn. If there's no time in your week for you to be able to do that, you have to, it's at a cost of something, isn't it? So if it's something you really want to do, you've got to get comfy with the fact that that's going to eat into your evenings and weekends or your day off. But if that's a no-go for you, then it's saying no to that client or saying no, not right now, but next month, or no, not right now, but I'm going to work with somebody else to help me deliver it. Or there's lots of different ways to kind of approach that. But I think the most important thing is that you're being intentional about what it costs you, because everything costs something. So if you say yes, it's costing your time. If you say no, it's costing you money. And there are different ways that you can say yes. Like I said, you can say yes, but next month, or you can say yes, but I'm going to work with someone else and do it together so that it's not as impactful on your time. Let's have a look. I need to do it, but it's scary. It is scary. I'm interested to know how you price different packages. At the moment, I have a standard day rate. I am happy to work flexibly, often at different levels. Yeah, okay. So I think that what I'm seeing more and more in the charity freelancer space is that people are moving from day rates to kind of project based pricing. And there's ups and downs to that. There really is. I think I need to do a whole workshop on that. But there's definite pros to it, because actually for the charity and for you, do they actually care how long you're sat at your desk as long as what they've asked you to do gets done? If they are being really particular about the time that it takes you to do something, that's kind of getting into like employee, an employee and employer relationship, isn't it? I think as long as you're actually providing the service that you've said that you will and the outcomes that you say that you will, and by outcomes I don't mean money in the bank, we can't guarantee that, I mean certain amount of applications or campaigns or whatever it is you're providing. As long as you're delivering on that, I actually don't think the amount of time that you sit at your desk or or on your laptop is relevant. But the downside to kind of project-based pricing is that you might overwork and therefore you see your day rate get even smaller. So you've got to be really quite strict with yourself in making sure that you don't overwork. But I don't think that's the responsibility of the charity client. I think that's on you guys. Does that make sense? Okay, let's have a look. I like working day rate as I don't know how long work will take, but the issue with this is that I work really quickly. Yeah, so that's downside to charging on a day rate. And this is something that I see, I work with quite a few experienced charity freelancers where they had a day rate 10 years ago, but they can turn something around that used to take them 2 days in an afternoon now because they're much more experienced and they've done it for 10 years, right? So they're earning less now than they did 10 years ago. Is that fair? They might have increased their day rate. Realistically, it's taking them far shorter amount of time to produce the same thing, the same report, the same application, campaign, whatever it might be. So they're getting they're getting paid much less in terms of the what their value is and the time that it takes them. So I love that this conversation's come up. I'm gonna do a whole session on this. Stay tuned. Okay, another example for the shift that needs to be made for your role is the it's quicker if I just do it trap. I'm getting lots of nods across the room here. So something isn't quite right, and you think it'll be quicker if I just do it myself. So you rewrite it, you edit it, you step up, you take ownership. But what actually is happening here is that you are often absorbing the responsibility to keep things moving internally. So, what resetting your responsibility can look like is you pause and you ask yourself, is this actually my responsibility? And then you either have a conversation with your clients, delegate the task clearly, or consciously scope it into a project or agreement. Efficiency is often where over responsibility hides. Okay, one more, the internal politics. So you're meeting with your main contact. So say for this example, it's the head of fundraising. And there's also a concerned trustee in the meeting too. Your contact, the head of fundraising, asks, what do you think we should do here? And you input. Then you take on the decision that you load up on the admin, you prescribe the outcome, and you feel responsible if it doesn't work. You've moved from an external consultant, an advisor, to owner of the outcome. And let's face it, outcomes are very unpredictable in fundraising at the moment. So you're kind of setting yourself up for a fall. You're giving your main contact in the organization an out because she's got someone to blame. And the whole kind of dynamic of the relationship is changed forever. So when resetting responsibility, that can look like you could say something like, I'm very happy to share my perspective and discuss options, but the final decision of what happens next will sit with you as a team. Input does not have to equal ownership of something. And I'm not saying shirk all responsibility. Of course, you're there being paid to do something. But most of the pressure felt in freelance work doesn't come from the work itself. It comes from the lack of clarity, taking on too much, and the uncertainty. But responsibility often expands quietly, a bit more here and a bit more there, until your role looks very different to what you originally were brought in to do. So resetting responsibility, it's not about pulling back or being unhelpful for being unhelpful's sake. It's about bringing the work back into alignment. So what you're doing really matches what you've actually agreed and what you're actually being paid to do. Let's have a look at the chat. find that I often agree to a day rate and then get into the work and find that I can't do it, as half the documents I need are either aren't there or out of date. Yeah, Sarah's helping you with that. Love that, Sarah. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to shift 3. So shift 3 is about your response. This is about what happens inside you when pressure shows up. Because right now, many freelancers, it looks like something urgent landing, an email, a message, a shift, or a deadline, and almost instantly you feel it. That pull to respond, a sense that you need to act now. And before you've even really consciously decided what to do intentionally, you're already reacting. So an example of this is the urgent email panic. So an email lands from a client that you've just started working with, someone that you want to impress. And it says something like, "This is quite urgent. Can you look at this today?" And you notice your body tightens, your focus changes on from whatever you were doing to this email, and you feel the need to respond immediately. Even if you don't act straight away, you're already holding that panic. The urgency has moved from their situation to your nervous system. So what can containment look like and starting to feel steadier? You pause, you reread the email again, and you say to yourself, this is urgent for them. That doesn't automatically make it urgent for me. And then you respond something like, I can see this is important. I'll review it and come back to you this afternoon. Or I've seen this, I'll digest it, and we can chat through in our meeting tomorrow. You recognize and respond to urgency without letting it take over your nervous system. So another example of this is the spiral after a message. So you see a message come in from a client that sounds a bit frazzled, something's wrong. You don't reply straight away, you're putting the washing on the line, but the panic sets in and your mind starts moving. Have I missed something? Is this my responsibility? Should I respond now? What are they expecting from me here? And suddenly you're rushing in from the garden with half your wet washing still in a bucket, getting back to your desk. You're no longer working on the work that you were doing before, and pressure is now sitting in your head. What staying steady would look like, what containment would look like, is instead of guessing, spiraling, and trying to resolve it quickly, you bring it back into clarity. So once you've finished putting the washing out and you've been for a wee, made a cup of tea, you respond, I hear you. What do you need and when do you need it by? This isn't groundbreaking stuff, guys. I know this is really simple, but is that something that you already do, or is that something that you could give a try? I just want you to keep it simple. Don't over process this. Don't over own stuff. I'm definitely going to try that. Yeah. Let me say that again. I hear you. What do you need? And when do you need it by? If you write one thing down, maybe make it that. I hear you. What do you need? When do you need it by? And then you return to what you were doing. You don't need to resolve everything immediately to be steady and feel settled. This is the shift that changes how your freelance work really feels in your body. Because right now, for many freelancers, urgency, it moves into your nervous system. And this is where we kind of get towards burnout. You feel it, you carry it, you're responsible for it. And a lot of the time, you don't have anybody else around you to talk about it with. You don't have a line manager checking in on your capacity or your well-being. So staying steady doesn't mean ignoring urgency. It doesn't mean being slow or unresponsive or rubbish at your job. It means creating a small space between what's landed and how you respond, so that you can stay in your role without taking the full weight of the situation onto your shoulders. So this workshop is focused on the three things: your time, your role, and your response. And this is the simple framework that we've been exploring today, the 3 shifts framework. The first shift is about your time, so how to stop urgency constantly reshaping your week, so that your week has enough structure to hold even under the pressure of the charity sector, because you're freelancers working in a quite a unique environment. The second shift is about your role, so how to stop carrying responsibility you did not agree to. So what you're responsible for is really clear, and you don't quietly expand that responsibility over time without your agreement or fees changing too. And then shift 3 is about your response. So it's how to feel steady when pressure comes towards you, so the urgency doesn't automatically land in your nervous system. So 1, 2, or 3, which one resonates with you the most? Which one are you going to go away and give a go? 2, your role, 2. 1, your time. 2, being more mindful of scope creep and acting on it quicker. 3, love this. Thank you, Amy. 1, 2, a mix. Okay. I'm yet to see a 1, 2, 3. Can we please have a 1, 2, 3 from someone? let's do all 3. Because what starts to change really is the big thing, isn't it? At the start of the session, I asked you to notice where pressure is currently landing in your freelance work. And during this workshop, you've probably noticed a few extra places where things aren't quite working how you wish they were. So once these shifts are put into place, the way you experience your freelance work, your business, let's start thinking about it as a business, starts to change. Your week feels more stable, your boundaries start to hold, you are more respected by your clients, and therefore more likely to be able to increase your day rate or your fee. And the work becomes something that you can actually sustain long term. Not perfectly, but consistently. And that's where steadiness begins. You can close your laptops and the tabs in your head. You can stop replaying conversations while you're having your dinner. You're not wondering if you've missed something when you're out enjoying yourself on the weekend. And you're clearer on what's yours to hold and what isn't. And over time, those shifts build into something much more solid and sustainable. You get more time to actually do the work that you're there to do, the work that you enjoy, the work that you're good at, the work that makes a positive impact that you want to make. And you get more aligned with why you chose to do this in the first place. Because as a freelancer, you made an intentional decision to leave in-house and go freelance. And sometimes, more often than I would like, that intentionality stops there. And what we need to do as freelancers is be intentional every day and show up for ourselves in our businesses. And most importantly, when these 3 shifts are made, you get to a place where you're working in a way that feels sustainable, not something that you have to keep recovering from. So everything that I've shared today is just the starting point. Understanding what needs to change and actually changing how your work operates are 2 different things. This is something that we need to really change in how your freelance business is structured. And this is the work that we do inside my program, Freelancers for Good. And I can see a couple of people that have already joined me on the call today, which makes me super happy. So we don't just talk about these shifts in the program. Through weekly group coaching, monthly one-on-one support, practical tools, templates, and frameworks, all wrapped up in a community of experienced charity freelancers that you've seen in the chat are experiencing the same situations as you, we actually redesign how your freelance work operates and how your business is structured. So you're not left to figure all of this out on your own. We work through it together over 6 months. And we take these shifts and many others and apply them to your actual charity freelance business so that you can be freelancers that do good for good, which is why my program's called Freelancers for Good. So if you're sat there thinking, yes, this is exactly what's happening to me, I feel seen, then the next step is to book a short call with me. I want to take everything that we've spoken about today and really put it into practice for you on a call. So I'm offering a small number of 30-minute booked, not busy calls, because that's what we all want, is to be booked, not busy. And this is a space to identify how your freelance work currently functions, where pressure tends to land, and how the 3 shifts framework can actually work for you. It's not about fixing everything in half an hour, let's be realistic, but we can get clear on what would actually make a difference. And then if it feels right and it feels like the next step would be that Freelancers for Good could help you, we'll chat about that. But there's absolutely no expectation and no pressure to join. This is simply a space for you to step out of your work and look at it clearly from the outside in, which is, for most freelancers, not something that we give ourselves the chance to do very often. So if you'd like one of those calls, give yourself the time to identify, explore, and apply this framework. It would be really lovely to speak with you. And thanks ever so much for your time today. I'll leave you with this. You don't have to do more. You don't need to try harder, and you don't need to care less. What you need to do is have a way of working that doesn't require you to carry everything. Because when that shifts, everything else becomes much easier to sustain. And let's face it, it makes it more enjoyable as well. Thank you again for showing up for this conversation and for the work that you do. You are incredible and you blow my mind every day on LinkedIn and in the conversations I have with you. You deserve ways of working that support you as much as you support the causes and clients that you work with. It is possible to do good and be well. Thank you ever so much for joining the workshop today, guys. I would really love it if you booked one of the booked not busy calls. I will pop the link below so that you can get that booked in and we can chat all about the 3 shifts framework and how it can work for your charity freelance business. Have a great day.